Hello and welcome to another video. We're going to continue with a better explanation and a better way of looking at that nested if one more time, where we're going to actually use multiple if statement nested in each other, nested if. And as you notice here, with nested if in Excel and directly in the spreadsheet, of course there is a nested if that works in the programming side of it behind the scene. This is basically a problem. It's a very interesting problem. Probably you've seen it in varieties of application. We have a professor that has a three tests, three quizzes, of course, and we have canceled here. I'm trying to move things around. Actually, four quizzes, and we have two projects. The professor is going to look for, when we do actually the grade, if the grade is greater than or equal, the score, sorry, is greater than or equal to 90, the person is going to get an A. Otherwise, then going to check the grade. If the grade is greater than or equal to 80, then going to get a B. Here we go. Let's go ahead and write those here anyway for you to see that. If this is C, this is D. Probably that's a classical scale. So those are actually the grade. And if it's otherwise, if it's less than 60, we're going to get an F. Also, the professor told me that he has three tests, regardless of the number of the tests, basically. Whatever test, they weight actually 60% of the overall grade. The quiz is going to be weighing actually 10%, and also the project can weigh 30%. However, also he told me that he has that ability, he needs to have the ability of changing those weight based on different classes. So he will be able to change the test to 50%, the quizzes, the 20%, the project to 30%, as long as the sum of these three values is equal to 100. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and check for that, how I'm going to make this is equal 100 all the time. If not, I'm going to really change the color of the background to a red. If it's 100, I'll leave this as actually to red color. There's means like there's a danger of some sort. So we're going to say if, to make sure, if the sum of all these three of them is equal to 100%, then we'll say it's okay, between double quote. Otherwise, we're going to say, look closely, you know, so closely to the data, okay? So we're going to go ahead and say here, look closely. And notice here we have it okay, because it's actually 10, well, 10 plus 30 is 40%, plus 60 is 100. If I change this to 20%, it's going to be, of course, look closely, because there's something wrong with the addition, with the selection of the weight. So I gotta really do something about it to make sure that it's 100. Also, if I wanted to change the background to green, if it's okay, and look closely, if it's look closely, I'm going to change it to red. Then I could go to the home. I'm going to use that conditional formatting, and I'm going to apply the manage rule. Since I have two rule here, I'm going to manage them like this. Format only cell that contains. If the cell now here, it has a constant, so I don't have really numerical value, where we could say varieties of testing here greater than or equal to. I just wanted to say the cell is equal to, directly, to the word okay, exactly how I typed it. And I'm going to format the background of the cell. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do the fill to greenish. Here we go. Actually, I could make it even prettier if I have to choose two colors with the green. There we go. So I could choose this one here. And okay, then I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, there's another rule waiting for me to be filled. And I say if, click, of course. Let me go ahead and say, go back to it, new rule, so slow down a little bit. Format cell that contains, and I'm going to say cell that is equal to, and what I'm equal to here, look closely. So that's what I chose to format as a red, and you could go ahead and make it even kind of like nice red. So here we go, this one here, indicating some sort of danger to grab the attention of the professor. So here we go. Notice here it's okay, so it's going to be 100%. Otherwise, if that person did not really select the right amount of weight, it's going to say look closely. And here we go. That's really neat with that conditional format. Obviously, still I'm having problem. Here we go. We should have no problem. Now we could continue to use our data. I'm going to be inserting the data here, all the data for the test, the quizzes, and the project. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I don't enter any data that is less than 0 or greater than 100. And that is going to be another thing that we should be familiar with. It's called the data validation. So when we talk about the data validation, it's under the ribbon data, and there is called data validation. Here we go. Take your time to see this data validation. And now the data validation, it says, okay, what do you want? I wanted to say if this one here has to be a whole number, meaning no fraction, no decimal points, unless the professor really has test score like 80.9 or 0.5. That's okay. Then we could change it to decimal. Okay, and the value must be between 0 and 100. If that is not the case, we're going to say, all right, I'm going to leave it as stop as the most, restrictive of all. And maybe I'll say to the professor, go ahead and wake up. You are entering the wrong data. Wake up. Check that score. Don't mess up the score for the kids. Okay, don't mess up the score for the kids or whatever appropriate message. And here we go. And notice here, when I go to this test one and I put here 100, that's fine. 110 is going to be problematic, knowing that says don't mess up the score for the kids. And you could say here retry. Say sorry, I'm going to give you what you deserve, 90. Let's say here 90, and we could go ahead and just go ahead and use the 90 all over the something restricting me in my table from having to drag my mouse correctly, but I'm going to take it as natural as it gets. When I make a mistake, I'm going to keep it and correct it, of course, and not stop to edit the videos. So the same thing with Tony. Let's say Tony has 80, 79, 90, 99, 100, and of course 190 here, 99. Let's see what happens and say, okay, sorry about that, retry. And I'm going to say minus 10, say, okay, retry, that's a negative value. I'll say probably at 100 here after we give him more time. So 87, 76, and the same thing for Taylor. Say 89, 99. So let's say 27, 89, and we're going to get 78, 56, 90, 100, and 67. I'm just trying to get different ranges of values. Of course, I'd like to give my students as high as it gets, but they have to earn it, as we all know. So this is here the score, and we're going to go ahead and calculate it. Remember, I have 3 tests, regardless of how many tests. Don't worry about it, because we're going to really look for a calculation that is going to cover, regardless of the number of the tests, the number of the quizzes, regardless of the number of the project. In order for the person to get 60% of the total grade for the weight, then it has to be the average of all the tests multiplied by that weight. And we're going to find the average of all the quizzes multiplied by the weight of the quizzes, plus the average of all the projects multiplied by the weight of the project, and the addition of the average of the test multiplied by its weights, plus the average of the quizzes multiplied by its weights, plus the average of the project multiplied by its weights, is going to form for me the score. This is the conceptual aspect of it, meaning the idea or the needed understanding in how we need to do the calculation. However, once we understand what we need to do, we have to move and turn it into an actual formula in Excel, managing it with the rules of Excel in the back of our head. Notice that this value is going to be standing alone by itself in this, so we need to use the absolute address, lock in the cell address. More likely the professor is not going to change this, but if you want to, like we did this in a previous program, or previous, not program, sorry, video, where we had really dynamic also, dynamic approach to changing the score if the professor wanted to change the 90 to 88 in order for that person to get an A, and the 80 is to 75, and the C is like 65, and the D is 50, depending on the difficulty of the task. And if it's less than 50, it's going to be D. That's completely up to, we know how to do it. It's completely up to the professor and what we want to do. Let's make it as simple as possible for now. And I assure you 100%, if you really know how to do what we're going to do in this videos, you're going to expand in your understanding and do even more demanding tasks. So first of all, we're going to do the average, and I'm going to do the whole thing in one calculation, the average of all the tests, and right away multiply that, asterisk, sorry, and I'm going to multiply it by this, knowing that the professor could change the weight, and the location here is 60%, I'm going to go ahead and lock it, plus the average of the test, here we go, average the quizzes, sorry, 4 of them, and we're going to multiply that by the 10% and lock it, and plus, and going to be the average of the projects, and of course multiplied by the project weights and lock it, and that is going to give me really a score between 0 and 100, no question about it, because I did validate my data entry. And here we go, we got 92. So for whatever reason, for next calculation, if the professor wanted to change that to 70% for the test, okay, of course he has to continue to change, or she should continue to change in order to get the green light before she really go ahead and confirm that score. See, the score already exceeded 100 because the weight is not actually the correct weight. So if I put here, let's say 5% for all the quizzes, still it's not right, and 25% for the project, now it's going to be right. So that the actual weight can change, and that's up to the professor with the agreement with the students, and here we go. Of course, we could go ahead and go to the home ribbon and change those to either to actually reduce the number of the digit to the right of the decimal points. There's something scary about this. When you take completely all the display of the digit to the right of the decimal point, maybe as students, let me show you how scary that, okay? You see, if we have here, like if that professor doesn't curve whatsoever, and that student has all 89 all the way through project 1, okay? And here he got, let's say, 92. The average is 89, okay? If that person got, let's say, 100 in the last project, it's going to be 90, the average. But let me go ahead and show you here. This is 90, that's actually above 90. If this is, let's say, 95, see, this is actually 89.79. If I keep the criteria, if it's greater than or equal to A, that person, even though, look here, if I do actually remove the decimal point, remove them, this is going to look 890, but this is not 90. This is actually 89.75. And now we're going to go ahead and see how the grade it is, but I'm going to restrict that only to 2 conditions to explain the ideas that this value of 90 is not really 90. So I'm going to say if this here is greater than or equal to 90, let me go ahead and give that child a A. Otherwise, for now, we're going to go ahead and give question mark because we have more than A, B, C, D. Of course, we have more than A and B. All right, so we'll go ahead and say here, all right, so that person got A, and this is going to actually drag it. Notice, even though this person got a 90 here, it's going to show the question mark. Why is that? Or maybe B. Okay, here, if I change that to all the other grade, is going to be B. No big deal. Everybody going to get B if they didn't get a greater than or equal to 90. Notice this person got B. If that person looking at this grade from a distance behind your shoulder and say, why did you give me a B? And I have got a 90 here. Well, then you have to explain to them. I don't round out, and I really should have displayed this with 2 digits to the right of the decimal point in order for you to see this is actually not 90, this is 89.75. This is maybe for the grade, you could really deal with it or be kind to your students, round it up maybe and change it to A. Usually that's the case. If it's so close to 90, I'll actually round it up. If it's higher than 89, it's 89, I have to cut it somewhere, unless it's going to be a B. But if it's really 89.5 something, rounded. Anyway, to make sure that you understood this, especially when we're talking about like business application, or you wanted to show your customer that you really didn't treat them unfairly, or you really were not sloppy with your work, so you need to add maybe 2 digits to the right of the decimal point to exactly show that percentage or that value and how it's applicable. Alright, so this is basically to go back to how we're going to change this to more than A and B, which is going to eliminate this because I'm going to be using nested F as we stated. If it's A, we're done. Otherwise, we have to check if this is actually greater than or equal to B. Greater than or equal to 80, sorry, it's going to be B. Otherwise, we're going to check if this is actually greater than or equal to 70, then we're going to give them C. Otherwise, we're going to click on this another F to check if this is greater than or equal to 60, then we'll give them D. Otherwise, we're going to give them F and go ahead and put parentheses, 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 parentheses to cover all the parentheses, and Excel is in fantastic help to match the color for you. So remind you, the first was green, the second purple, the third red, and the fourth is black, and here we go. Notice if I change that for whatever reason, here we go, that's B because of the grade, but I'm sorry to miss Elena's score, just to make sure that we can actually respond to all the changes. Now, if I give her 9 in the first test, her score is going to change to 71, so it's going to be C. I change those, so let's say here 2 zeros, and not to worry, 20, we'll go back and give you those, but for testing purposes, notice that his score is less than 60, it's changed to an F. So make sure that you do test your actual calculation before you commit finally to what you need to do before you do actually give up that real application, a real world application. So let's go ahead and give Tony back 100 and give him another 100 here so he could get his A. The same thing, you could go ahead, if I wanted to go ahead and round this here, I obviously have to go ahead and do that and change a little bit. If I say, since all this calculation is going to result into one a value, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is going to be 71, 93, and here we go.